From accidental haunting to tragic death, some of the most talented actors have enjoyed their success that followed, but some have suffered for their art. In this 5-part miniseries, we'll be looking into some of the most infamous curses that have left an everlasting shadow over Hollywood. Warning. This episode contains images that some may find disturbing. In 1967, Ira Levin wrote Rosemary's Baby, the best-selling horror novel of the 1960s with 4 million copies sold. Levin thought of the story as the birth of Christ turned upside down and was afraid of religious backlash for such a blasphemous tale. He himself was a Jewish atheist. As such, he would not even show his pregnant wife the story while he was writing it. Levin was also taking notes of her pregnancy for his main character. Paramount wasted no time in adapting the novel into the classic 1968 horror film. Roman Polanski was sent the novel, which he read through the night and opted to write the screenplay as well as direct the film. Polanski remained as loyal as possible to the book, using the dialogue mostly word for word and paid careful attention to small details. The role of Rosemary went to Mia Farrow, who at the time had little big screen experience, but was known for the soap opera Peyton Place and for being married to the one and only Frank Sinatra. The story follows young couple Rosemary and her husband Guy as they move into a New York City apartment building. As a struggling actor, Guy is one day given a big role in a play when the original actor suddenly loses his sight. With newfound success, he suggests the couple have a baby. Rosemary has a vividly realistic vision where she's held down by the tenants in the building and raped by a demonic figure with bright yellow eyes. The next morning she finds scratches over her body, and Guy claims she passed out while they had sex. She soon discovers she's pregnant. The tenants convince Rosemary to change doctors, and as she suffers from abdominal pains, her weight drops. When her old friend Hutch is alarmed by her condition, he vows to research the building and its tenants, but falls into a sudden coma before he can share information with Rosemary and later dies. Rosemary studies a book left to her by Hutch with a message warning her that one of the other tenants' names is an anagram, which, after researching the new name, leads her to believe the people in their building belong to a satanic coven. After believing Guy has conspired against her with no help from her previous doctor, she goes into labor and is sedated. When she awakens, Guy tells her the baby was stillborn, but when left alone she follows the sound of a baby crying and finds a secret room where all of the suspected coven, along with Guy, are celebrating the birth of a baby. Upon closer inspection, Rosemary is horrified at the baby's appearance and demands to know what happened to its eyes. She's told the baby is the son of Satan and has his father's eyes. Shortly after the film's release, the score composer Christoph Komeda was accidentally pushed off an escarpment while at a party in Los Angeles. He suffered a hematoma and, like Hutch, fell into a coma. Komeda never regained consciousness and passed away a year later. Almost a year after the film's release, producer William Castle was struck down with severe kidney stones. In hospital, he hallucinated scenes from the film, calling out for Rosemary to put down the knife. Castle recovered just barely and produced only 3 more films, none of which were successful. In 1977, he suffered a heart attack, again in Los Angeles. Most infamously of all, Roman Polanski fell victim to the alleged curse, or rather his fiancée, actress Sharon Tate, did. Almost a year after the film's release, while Polanski was held up in London, Tate was at the couple's home in LA with 3 friends when they were attacked and murdered by members of the infamous Manson family. Stephen Parent, a friend of the property's caretaker William Garrettson, was found shot dead in his car in the driveway. 2 of Tate's friends, Wojciech Frykowski and Abigail Folger, were found on the front lawn with numerous stab wounds. Tate and Jay Sebring were found in the living room, connected by a long rope tied around their necks. Sharon Tate was heavily pregnant at the time. She was stabbed a total of 16 times. Polanski did face his own demons and was arrested in 1977, accused of drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl. He pled not guilty to all charges, but accepted a plea bargain to dismiss all charges in exchange for pleading guilty to unlawful sexual intercourse. Just hours before he was due to be charged, Polanski fled to London and then France in 1978. He has avoided countries likely to extradite him to the US ever since. Rosemary's Baby was the beginning of almost a new genre, demonic children, a subject made famous again in 1973. Again, based on a novel, William Blatty's The Exorcist is one of the most famous horror films of all time. The story of a 12-year-old girl, Regan, possessed by the demon Pazuzu, took a hit very early on. As filming began in 1972, the set for Regan's home burned down after a bird flew into a circuit box. The only part of the set that was not burned was the room used for the exorcism scene. Almost a year before the film's release, Jack McGowan, who played the film's first victim, Burke, died at the age of 54 after contracting influenza, with complications from the 1973 London flu epidemic. 2 years later, Vasiliki Maliaros, who played the role of Father Karras' mother, passed away at 89 years old. Regan's mother was played by Ellen Burstyn. She was injured while filming a scene where she's thrown across the room. This was used in the film where her scream is of the actress in genuine pain. But her burdens did not end there. During production, her ex-husband began stalking her for 6 years, as well as broke into her house and raped her. However, as spousal rape was shockingly not yet a crime, no charges were filed. Neil Burstyn committed suicide in 1978. Family members also suffered during production, as Linda Blair's grandfather passed away, and on his first day of shooting, Max von Sydow lost his brother. Jason Miller, who played Father Karras, almost lost his son while filming in a motorbike accident. Linda Blair herself was also injured while filming, as she's thrown from her bed, part of the rigging broke, causing an injury to her back. And due to its blasphemous nature, Blair was also the victim of death threats following the film's release. Many years after the film's release, Pazuzu's voice actress Mercedes McCambridge was met with tragedy. Her son John Markle was found to be mingling accounts in his investment firm Stevens Incorporated in 1987. Following a downward spiral, he murdered his wife and his 9 and 13-year-old daughters with revolvers while wearing a Halloween mask, before taking his own life and leaving a bitter note, blaming his actions on his estranged relationship with his mother. Finally, in 1976, Richard Donner's The Omen starred Gregory Peck, David Warner, and Patrick Troughton. The plot followed an American diplomat secretly adopting an orphaned newborn after his own child was stillborn. He becomes increasingly concerned that the child he is raising is causing death and destruction around him, and is showing hostility towards his adoptive mother. When Robert Thorne is finally convinced that Damien is the Antichrist, he decides to kill the child, but is shot to death by police before he can do so. The Omen is thought to be one of the most cursed films in history due to its many incidents on set. In a scene where Robert is chased through a cemetery by dogs, the stuntman fell victim to the canines as the Rottweilers managed to bite through his protective equipment and ignored commands to stop. In another scene, Damien is attacked by baboons at a safari park. The day following this scene being shot saw a zookeeper being killed by a tiger. Also on this day, director Richard Donner's hotel was bombed by the IRA. On 3 separate occasions, planes carrying Gregory Peck, writer Dave Seltzer, and producer Mace Neufeld were all struck by lightning. Neither incident caused any harm, however, the crew booked a plane for aerial shots, but changed due to a schedule conflict, and the original plane crashed, killing everyone on board. Special effects director John Richardson was responsible for one of the climactic scenes in which Warner's character Keith Jennings is decapitated by a sheet of glass. However, after filming was completed, Richardson and his assistant Liz Moore were involved in a head-on car accident on Friday the 13th. While Richardson escaped with his life, Moore was decapitated in an eerie reenactment of the film. Richardson claimed to have seen a Dutch road sign just before the accident. Omen 66.6 kilometers. Finally, both Gregory Peck and Damien's actor Harvey Stephens both suffered before and after the film. Peck's son took his own life by gunshot just 2 months before filming began. His agent advised him to take on the role to stay busy. He continued to work well into his 80s before suffering from bronchopneumonia in 2003 and passing away at the age of 87. Stephens, on the other hand, barely acted again after his Golden Globe-nominated debut as the evil Damien. He did, however, make a cameo as a journalist in the 2006 remake, which was released on June 6, 06. While curses may or may not be responsible for the events featured in this miniseries, it leaves no doubt that filmmakers often suffer for their art, and as their legacies continue on screen, it may always come with an unwanted shadow. Thank you for experiencing Hollywood Curses. I may return in future with another solo project, but for now, remember to check out myself and my team on the Max Wrestling Podcast every week.